everybody, welcome along to episode 55 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're all well and happy out there. Please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our world famous YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that if you can. It only takes a second. It really does help us, and it will ensure that you don't miss any of the interviews we've done or any of the amazing interviews that we've got coming up. And if you prefer to listen to your conversations on the go, then you can find all of ours in podcast form on Apple Music and on Spotify. On to today's guest. I was lucky enough a few weeks ago to be interviewed as a guest on my guest's show. And the show is called Drum for the Song podcast. Now, Dane has had some fantastic guests on there, including Matt Sorum, Mikkey D, Nigel Blockler. There's an awful lot of great. They tend to be from the heavier end of music, which is great, and it suits me just fine. Some amazing guests. He's from South Wales. I'm from North Wales. He plays drums in a fantastic band called Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. Phil Campbell, of course, was the guitarist in Motorhead for many, many years until after Lemmy's sad demise, there were no more. So they set this great band up with Phil and his sons, and they're incredible. Dane runs a great podcast, similar to mine. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Dane Campbell.
My absolute pleasure, Matt. It's great, Matty, and I've been listening to a lot of your interviews and I've been really enjoying them. So thanks for having me on. I feel honoured, to be honest.
Well, do you know, it's a pleasure. And speaking of interviews, you've done more than enough yourself in the last 12 months. We have a similar kind of thing going on. Yours is Drum for the Song podcast, which people can find on, I guess, on all the usual formats, Facebook and YouTube, and I guess I don't know where else can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, listen on Spotify. I think I'm on Stitcher and Deezer and some of the kind of less popular ones. If you do prefer those, I think I'm on most of them, probably not all. If I'm not on one, let me know and I can try and get it on. But yeah, you know, most of the podcast outlets I'm on. Yeah, and you can follow the page on Facebook to keep up to date, and Instagram and Twitter and even TikTok. I've even resorted to TikTok, which I'm not really enjoying, to be honest, and I'm not really succeeding on there. But it's a very strange thing. I think I'm too old for it, and it knows I'm too old for it. I think so.
Well, you know, between us, obviously you're South Wales, I'm North Wales. I think we've pretty much got Wales covered now as far as drummer interviews goes between us, haven't we? We've got everybody covered, I reckon. Yeah,
it's great, and like I think I've mentioned this before too. Like I haven't really spent a lot of time up in North Wales, and even though it's not actually that far away, it's only a few hours drive, you know, up through the mountains.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really spent a lot of time up there. But yeah, I think it's nice to kind of know that there's people doing it. There might be other people we don't know doing it somewhere else in Wales. I don't know of anyone, but you know, let us know if you're listening and you're doing something similar. It's really interesting to see what other people are doing, and like we're trying to support each other by, you know, I'm coming on your show and you've obviously been on my show.
I have, yes.
Yeah, so it's just nice to help each other out, really. And
it is,
because it's hard work, and I think we appreciate how hard it is. So yeah, you know, we're providing free entertainment for people.
Yeah.
And hopefully you all like it.
Well, you the way you do it is a very similar style to me, and vice versa. You know, it's quite relaxed. We're not reading questions from a piece of paper. It's a conversation, and I think that's the way it should be, you know, and that's the way it works best for my money.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I try not to use the word interviews. I do use it occasionally, but I do try and say, like conversation. I do normally have a few notes, maybe bullet points stuck to my screen sometimes.
Yeah.
And when I did start out, I did have pieces of paper on the floor next to me. So it's kind of interesting to see how I've improved it in my opinion.
Yeah.
So even if I'm reading off the screen, like you can't tell I'm reading off the screen, if you know what I mean. And for people who listen, it probably doesn't make a difference. But people who watch them on YouTube, which I don't know if you find this, that it seems to be one of the more popular ways for maybe our demographic, or it might be that, I don't know what your demographic is, but I'm just saying a lot of people that are interested in my show, I've asked them and most of them watch it. They like watching it. And it's strange because it's not like by choice. I listen to more podcast type stuff. I listen on audio while I'm doing something else. It's more of like a background kind of bit of entertainment while I'm doing something else. But knowing that these people like watching it, so I want to try and make I call it production. It's not, a lot going on, but I try and make it look as presentable as I possibly can. I'm not saying it's professional because it's not professional, but I try and make it as good as possible.
Absolutely. No, well, same as me. The only slight complaint is that you've got guitars on the wall behind you rather than drums, but never mind.
I've got a picture of it.
That's close enough.
Yeah, that's why I put it there. I'm like, well, and the problem, like, I do have a little, like, I don't know where yours is. Like, I've got a little shed in my garden with the drum kit in, and it's got an acoustic drum kit and an electric drum kit. Yeah. Unfortunately, my Wi-Fi signal, it doesn't really get there very well.
Right.
So I haven't really taken the risk of trying it because obviously one thing, we're doing this over Zoom, over the internet. When the connection's bad, it can be a bit of a disaster. Like I've spoken to other guests where I was 2 minutes their end because I know I've got quite a good connection where I am now, and it kind of breaks up all the time. And I have to say, "Oh, can you repeat that?" And that's the kind of stuff. If I can avoid that, that's great.
Yeah, of course.
If we can make a nice seamless conversation without breaks like that. So I haven't really tried it. I know it would look cooler. I sometimes film some videos for anyone who follows me on like Instagram or Facebook. I do film a few little drum videos from there, and it looks quite cool. But it's just that I might experiment and buying a Wi-Fi booster and trying it and maybe testing it with a friend or something. I wouldn't want to just do a conversation with an actual drummer for one of my episodes without testing it first,
especially after some of the bigger guys, and you've spent months chasing them. You finally get them, and then the internet lets you down. That's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and you can't do anything about it at your end. Hopefully the listener can understand, well, not everyone's got the best connection, or other people in the house need the internet, like I know, like we're doing this now. My wife's in the other room working from home, and she does a lot of like video calls, conference calls for her work. And like, obviously if one of those comes in while I'm speaking to a drummer, there's nothing I can really do.
No.
So if that happens, but normally I don't think I get many problems my end. So touch wood anyway.
So, well, what made you start doing these? Because I guess it's just over a year. I think I started in May or June last year, and I think you were a similar kind of.
Absolutely, I think. Yeah, I think I released the first episode in June, but I think I recorded it in April, kind of May, and I kind of, it took me a while to figure out how to kind of do everything, and like the video editing side of it, I'd never done anything like that before in my life, really. I think I maybe did some tour diaries for a band years ago using Windows Media Player or something, something really, really basic. So it's kind of me, and I was experimenting with trying to get the audio to sound the best. Unfortunately, that first episode doesn't, hopefully my later ones sound way better than that one did, and it kind of shows the progression I made, hopefully.
Sure.
But it was a similar situation where obviously the pandemic hit, lockdown kind of started. With my band, Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. Hopefully I can say that word. You're okay with me saying that word? You've had worse, I know.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So we were due to have our busiest year ever. It was going to be the most kind of festivals we've ever done, headline tours, and kind of all that was the immediate gigs had obviously been kind of postponed or cancelled. There was obviously hope for later in the year at that point, but as the summer kind of went on, it looked less and less likely.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, well, I'd spent the last few years really getting into podcasts. I use Spotify personally.
Yes.
And listening to so many, not all music related podcasts. Loads of stuff, like business ones, health and well-being podcasts, and some celebrity ones, I suppose, gaming podcasts.
Right.
That's one of the things I'm into. And I was like, I wonder if I could maybe do a drum podcast. At the time, I wasn't really aware of many drum podcasts. I think there are a lot more now. So
yeah.
I guess myself and yourself are unfortunately part of this. I don't know the best word, but there's a lot of them around now, but a lot of them have been around so much longer, so they've kind of built up, more of a listenership. Hopefully, we can catch up one day. That's the goal. Yeah, that's the goal. So I thought I could do it. I knew I had the contacts to at least start. Like for anyone who doesn't know, my dad was the guitarist in Motorhead for 30 odd years. I don't really like saying that, but I'm saying I've got contacts, and that's why I've got the contacts basically through him. And
that's a good contact.
It's a good contact. And I've been touring in bands myself for 15 years, pretty much, maybe a bit longer. So there's a lot of friends I made along the way, and managers and agents and people like that.
Yeah.
So I thought, and then it was when people were doing it over Zoom. I was like, oh, this looks quite easy, actually. I pretty much need a microphone and a laptop, and maybe a pair of headphones, and I can kind of get started. So I originally bought, I honestly think it was about £25, a USB Amazon microphone. And so I'm using that for like the first 6 or 7 episodes. It sounds okay, surprisingly. So I kind of use that, as a bit of an investment. So, obviously, as we know, we don't make money from this.
No.
No.
Definitely
not. My first episode was Nigel Glockler from Saxon. So that was a really amazing guest to have as my first. And I think it did help create a bit of a buzz at the very start. And he helped kind of push it from his end, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I think Saxon themselves helped out as well, which was great. So it kind of gave me a nice head start. And then my second episode was with a friend of mine. He used to manage my band as well, Ryan Richards from Funeral for a Friend.
Right. Okay.
So that's a kind of slightly different kind of genre, time, still rock music. But he's a great drummer. And then I think it was my third episode. No, the third guest, was kind of where it kind of started kicking off quite a lot was Matt Sorum. So he's a friend of my dad's. So he was an amazing guest to have so early on. But it did really help kind of boost the podcast. And I think he tweeted about it, and luckily it got on, I don't know how, but it got picked up by a few kind of online kind of news websites, music websites, like Ultimate Guitar posted about a few of the kind of quotes from it and stuff. So that was them kind of discovering it, probably through his tweet, I would have thought. I don't know. And then kind of thinking, oh, this is good stuff. Let's make some news articles about it. So that kind of helped. I definitely got more views directly from that at that point, I think. It's hard to know exactly where your views come from, but because that's happened since, and I haven't had many views, so it's strange. But they were my first few. I can quickly reel off my other guests if you don't mind.
Please do.
For anyone who's listening, and then they might be like, oh,
please do. Get on there, subscribe. You know what you've got to do.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had Moose Thomas, who used to be the drummer for Bullet for My Valentine. He's now in a band called Kill the Lights. So he's another Welshman. He was actually before Matt Sorum, according to this. There you go. And then Ash Sheehan, who's an incredible drummer, plays drums for Glenn Hughes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Absolutely amazing drummer. One of my favorite interviews, actually, or conversations. He's just such an interesting character. There's a lot of swearing in that episode, I'm afraid. But I just let him do his thing. He was being himself.
Yeah.
He talked about his Irish traveler background. His family are all Irish travelers, and like it was such a fascinating conversation. I love that. And he's such a great drummer. I should check him out. Then I had Bob Richards, which was another Welshman. He's in a band called Buck and Evans, and he's also in Son of Man. But he's also in 2 AC/DC music videos.
Oh, right.
He's standing in for Phil Rudd.
Right.
Kind of during that time, the Rock or Bust album.
Yes.
During the time where Phil Rudd had been up to a few controversial things.
We know.
I could make a podcast about that in itself. But Bob Richards got a call because he knew someone who knew someone, and they probably thought he looked the part, and he was in the UK. They were filming music videos in London, and he got called up the day before, saying, "Oh, are you available tomorrow? AC/DC are filming a music video, and Phil Rudd hasn't showed up." It's crazy, but that's an unbelievable story in itself. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, Bob's a legend, and he's a big Cozy Powell fan. He owns one of Cozy Powell's old drum kits and stuff. So we talked about that. So that's a really good one. And then one of my personal favorites was Mark Richardson from Skunk and Nancy.
Yeah, great drummer.
Great drummer. He was also in Feeder and Little Angels. But when I grew up, literally one of my favorite rock bands in the whole world was Skunk and Nancy. They were literally, I saw them live in Newport Centre, I remember, and Muse was supporting, which is funny. Muse was supporting them.
Great
crazy.
gig.
And on their third album, Post Orgasmic Chill. But yeah, Mark's drumming, I think, really influenced my drumming, because it was at that time where I was probably really I was listening to so much music at that age, consuming so much music. And I think his kind of heavy rock drumming, he's not a metal drummer by any means.
No.
Like a rock drummer. I think he kind of helped me develop my own style with a few other people like Dave Grohl and Travis Barker and people like that. I guess probably influenced me more at that age.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, he amazing conversation.
Good.
He talked about some like addiction problems he'd had on the road back in the day, which I didn't even know about really. And now he started his own charity called Music Support, which is he's trying to help out other people who work in the music industry with problems like that. So that was an amazing episode. And it was Gordon Morrison from Raging Speedhorn. Again, crazy tour stories, being in jail in Spain and touring with Slipknot and crazy stuff like that. He's an honorary Welshman. He lives in Wales. He's not.
That'll do.
Wasn't born yet, but he supports the football team, which I think is funny. But he's an Englishman. Then we had Jack Sutton Bassett from a great rock band called King Creature that supported my band on tour a couple of years ago. Mike Heaton from Embrace and Code Drumheads, people familiar with his work and their work. Great. That was a really, really good one. He's had #1 albums and things like that, crazy success in terms of charts. Wyatt Wendell's, who's one of the radio DJs on Planet Rock Radio. He's kind of one of the main ones.
Oh yeah, I know.
So that was really good, because that was the first. Well, that was interesting because he's so used to interviewing musicians, and I was interviewing him. So kind of he was giving me tips and stuff. So that was kind of cool for him. And he joined a band called Black Spiders during the pandemic, and that was really interesting because he literally turned up and recorded the drum track for the album without even meeting the band, because they did everything kind of emailed. Yeah, crazy. That's weird, didn't even meet the band. But then I took a little break then over kind of Christmas. The other thing that I did mention is during the pandemic, I was a pro musician. I still am technically, but I had to get a kind of part-time job just to kind of keep things going.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm still doing that now, but that started like April 2020. So it was Christmas time and I was getting more shifts there. So I was like, if I had to do the podcast as well, I think I'm just going to overload myself with too much work. So I thought I need a bit of time off. And that led into January then. So I took January off. But then I came back with probably my most popular episode was Mikkey D.
Yeah.
He was the drummer in Motorhead with my dad. And he's also in the Scorpions now. So that I guess because I've got access to kind of that audience, that might have been the reason for how popular it was. But like Mikkey helped promote him. I think Motorhead posted about it once, which always helps when the bands themselves post about them.
Not forgetting King Diamond as well, Dane.
King Diamond, yeah, of course. We only had an hour, so we didn't even get to talking about King Diamond, to be honest. But I think, that's where a lot of people love his drumming from that era, because it was very different to what he was doing with Motorhead.
Yeah,
It was more of a technical metal kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was quite proggy in ways, but more metal. But that was a great interview. He opened up so much about some great, funny, hilarious, and quite unusual, interesting stories about Motorhead and arguing with Lemmy and things like that, and leaving the band and all this stuff like that. So that's a really good one. And it helped because I kind of knew him. I've obviously met him many times over the years, and it was just like comfortable. Yeah, it wasn't like saying hello and introducing myself to someone over the internet for the first time in my life. It was quite nice. But and then we had Ronnie from Those Damn Crows, the Welshman.
Yes.
Great band, doing really well at the moment. Russell Gilbrook from Uriah Heap.
Great.
Again,
Great
one of my favorite guests of all time. Just so enthusiastic. He's a fantastic drummer as well, as we know. He was amazing. So thanks for that. Then another interesting one, Adam Parsons.
I know Adam, yes.
You know Adam, don't you? Yeah. So he's a band manager, artist manager for some of the bands I mentioned earlier, actually. But he's also a massive drum collector, like more of a vintage drum collector, but he's got an incredible collection, like insane collection of drums. So that, like, we got a lot into like drum nerdery for that episode quite a lot, but we also talked about the music industry, which was nice to get his view from that, especially about the pandemic and how it's affected the way we got to do things now.
Sure.
And that was interesting. Then another great drummer, Ashley Green from Holding Absence, which are one of the kind of big up and coming British rock bands now. Like their singer was on the cover of Kerrang magazine a couple of months ago, and so that was really good. They played Download Festival the other day. Then Thomas Barth from Sonor, I think is the official way. We talk about how to pronounce that in the German way, but he's the A&R, so artist and relations manager for Sonor Drums. So he's the guy I deal with when I want to buy gear, because luckily, fortunately, I'm an endorsee. So that was amazing. Different area of the industry altogether. Yeah. So it was nice to get his aspect on things. Charlie Benante, which was that was really amazing to get him on. Took me a while to get him on, but we got it in the end. So from Anthrax, SOD, great, amazing drummer, pioneering kind of thrash metal drummer. Yeah. Mike Tirana,
another beast,
absolute beast of a drummer. Amazing, again, one of my favorite guests. Yes, full of life, just so positive about everything. Amazing. Vinny Appice from Dio, Black Sabbath, Last in Line, loads of other bands, Heaven and Hell. Again, he was an amazing guest. Yeah. That's a really good one. People probably know who he is, hopefully.
I've had his brother on. I've had Carmine on.
Yeah. I'd like to get him on eventually. I was aware he'd been on your show, and I thought, maybe wait to see what he's up to in a year, maybe. Sure. But I need to go back and listen to that one, because it's one of this. There's a few of your episodes I've saved on my Spotify. I downloaded them to watch. So I would definitely want to watch these or listen to these, and that's one of them. And then coming to the end now, Francis Ruiz from Buckcherry.
Yes, great player.
Really, he's an amazing player. So he's in a hard rock band called Buckcherry at the moment. But he was also a professional drum tech for like 20 odd years. He used to drum tech for Mikkey D, Charlie Benante, Paul Bostaff from Slayer, loads of others. So it was cool from his perspective. He's toured as a professional musician and toured as a professional drum tech. So like that's a different thing to talk about. I've never been a drum tech, even though I think I'd be quite good. But I don't know what it's like touring as part of the crew. I've never done it as part of the crew. I've only been in the band. So it was nice. And then the most recent one up until now is Cobb from a band called Punk Rock Factory. Total DIY band. They do drum covers in like the pop punk style, right? But the other thing about Cobb is that for the last maybe the last 8 years, he's kind of become like a bit of a social media marketing expert. So he gets employed by record labels and bands and stuff to kind of run their social media marketing ad campaigns and stuff like that.
All right, okay.
So he knows how to build something up. So so his band have never played a gig. They've released 2 albums, all on their own, releasing them all themselves. But they've had millions and millions of Spotify plays, millions of views on YouTube, and it's all down to kind of him masterminding it all. They're really good. Very, very good. And they've done like a Disney album. It's all Disney covers, all the hits from Disney films. And they've got a new one coming out now, which is I think it's all 90s cartoon themed songs. So, and I'm really looking forward to that because it's kind of the era I grew up watching cartoons, I suppose. So that's going to be really cool. It's like the Pokemon theme song and there's loads Power Rangers and stuff like that. So I haven't actually shared it yet, but I know it's going to be good. But that was the most recent one. So I think they've had a good variety.
Yeah.
So, like it's great to have a guy who's a drummer in the band, but it's also really interesting to kind of mix it up a little bit with people who work in the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people were not aware of. Well, it's quite a niche kind of job, I suppose. If you're A&R for a drum company, or you build drums yourself, or you're a drum tech and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting for most music fans to hear. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the drummers you've had on, I'd say, are definitely in the hard rock / metal category, which is a great thing, you know. And if that's the thing you have the knowledge of, is more knowledge of than others, maybe, then that's great. And I when I listen to something, I don't really care who they've played for. If it's an interesting story, it's an interesting story, and that's the way it should be, I think, personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talk about a lot of serious subjects, and you know, there's injuries. Like the Cobb guy from Pug Rock Factory, he had this serious form of arthritis called palindromic rheumatism.
Blimey.
And he literally just couldn't do anything, couldn't get up, and he explains how he ended up treating that, experimenting with different medications, and how he's got to inject himself every day, but I think he's on top of it. So like we talk about lots of things like that. But yeah, so that, you know, even if you don't know his band or you don't know who he is, it's such a great conversation.
That's the way it should be. Yeah, definitely. No, that's good.
But yeah, like when you say rock and metal, like initially it wasn't really my plan to stay within that genre as such. You know, there's a few guys I guess aren't specifically in that rock guitar bands, I suppose. But yeah, you know, that is what I've kind of grown up in and I've always been a part of. But, you know, I would love to get kind of drummers on as well, you know, but they're probably really hard to get. But, you know, the guys you see, all the session guys and the guys you see at the clinics, you know, like your Benny Grebs, they'd be like dream guests, but they're not in the kind of rock demographic, but I'm sure people would like to.
They're probably mad busy.
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. They're probably too busy. So I haven't approached anyone like that at the moment. And, you know, maybe one day, but maybe wait till it grows a bit before I start approaching guys like that. I think.
Well, look, you know, it's been a huge success, hasn't it? And you know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And I've eaten quite a few of your podcasts and thoroughly enjoyed them. So there we go.
Thank you very much. Same back to you, really. And
thank you.
I'm glad we kind of started talking.
Yeah.
Because I think I mentioned before that I didn't really discover yours till like a few months into it.
Yeah.
Like maybe likewise with mine, I don't know. But it's great because when you discover something new and they've already been going, you've got lots more to delve into.
Yeah. So
you've got all the back catalogue to kind of.
Absolutely.
It's just finding time is the hardest thing. But yeah, it's great. It's great. And that's the beauty with podcasts. They don't go away, do they? They can stay there. So
it's a legacy.
I hope so anyway.
Yeah. So look, that's the podcast. So, you know, if everybody watching this or listening, then, you know, please subscribe, share the love a little bit, and, you know, take a bite of that cherry pie instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're quite easy to find online anyway, aren't you? You know, there's no, everyone's easy to find online these days. So
yeah, so just search for Drum for the Song. I think that's all one word on kind of Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But then, yeah, Facebook, it should come up, Drum for the Song.
Yeah.
And there's a group as well, which is funny. Lots of like drum memes, taking the Mikkey out of guitar players and stuff like that. You know, if you're into all that.
You never have too much of that, can you?
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite a nice drum community on there. A lot of people share different videos on there, like drum performance videos.
Sure.
So that's quite a nice place to have as a little home, and
cool
on Facebook anyway. But yeah.
So let's go back kind of to what started you off with drums, Dane, because, you know, slightly unusually, as you said, you know, you've already mentioned who your dad is, and then you know, I'm just trying to imagine what home life was like for you. As I have this vision of every now and then Lemmy popping round for, you know, shepherd's pie with a JD for tea, you know, you all sat around, and I'm sure it was nothing like that whatsoever. But
it wasn't like Lemmy only ever came to the house once, and that was when it was either at the end or at the start of a tour, and a tour bus bloody reversed into the street. It was crazy. Everyone from the street comes out of their front doors.
Oh dear!
Kind of, what's going on here? Most of the neighbors knew about my old man and stuff, but I guess it was just like, what's this? Like, it's normal if you're in a band tour bus. But normal people don't get to see them, I guess.
No, that's the thing.
But yeah, it was really, apart from my dad being away all the time, we had a really normal childhood on the most part. You know, I went to a very normal school, and normal friends, and, you know, my dad was just never there. But yeah, he did introduce us to music early on.
Yeah.
He was a drummer himself. Before he played guitar in bands, he was a drummer. Yeah. So he kind of did he calls it cabaret, the cabaret circuit, kind of cover bands and stuff.
Sure.
And then eventually got into guitar, and he obviously, I guess, got quite good at guitar.
Kind of did all right.
Did all right, yeah. But yeah, so I've got an older brother, Todd, who plays guitar in the Bassett Sons. So he was clearly, you know, into the guitar. You could tell he had what you needed naturally to kind of play guitar. Yeah. And I was 4 years younger than him. And I remember being shown guitar, and I was into it as well. But I think there was at one point I got to sit behind a drum kit, and I think my dad kind of started showing me like your kind of basic 4/4 beat. And I think I just picked it up quite quickly. I assumed that he kind of saw, oh, well, Dane's going to be a drummer, or you can tell he's just some people naturally have it. Some people have to work at it, don't they? And some people just don't get it. Yeah. And luckily I was in that kind of, I'm not that good, but I'm just saying I naturally can play the drums. Thank you. But you know, it was clear that I had rhythm and like independence at that age to at least kind of start anyway. Sure. But, it was great, really. And yeah, I did play a little bit of guitar, but it was always like, yeah, Dane's the drummer. And then we were lucky enough. We used to jam in the when I got a little bit older, we used to jam in our garage. So like my dad would play bass, Todd would play guitar, and then I'd play drums. And then it got to a stage where the neighbors were like complaining and stuff. And they had to get the noise police to kind of measure the sound levels and that. And we got told like, oh, you're only allowed to do it within. Well, we were respectful anyway. We were doing it late at night and stuff. Like I didn't really know, but apparently it was just over the volume level that was allowed or whatever. I don't know. So my dad ended up buying us an electronic drum kit then, like a Roland V drum kit. Sure. TD. It was a good one at the time as well, which I'm really grateful for. TD6 or something like that. Okay. At the time, it was like, you know, a big deal. Yeah. So then I kind of spent most of my teenage years playing that, and then we turned my mum's dining room into a music room. It was always the music room. So we could still jam, but it was obviously a lot quieter. Yeah. We could control the volume of the drums. And that's, I guess, where, I used to come home from school. If I wasn't jamming with someone else, I was playing along to CDs through the headphones. And I spent many afternoons after school doing that. And I guess that's probably where I excelled the most during that period. I don't think I've excelled much since then, but kind of during that maybe 14 to 17, 18 kind of age, I think that's probably where I kind of built up most of my, I don't want to say skills and stamina and speed.
You can say it. It's fine. It's cool.
Things like that. But yeah, like apart from my dad showing me the basics, I was very self-taught.
Yeah.
Which, looking back, I wish I wasn't. I wish he kind of sent me the lessons. I'm very capable of playing rock music in a rock band to a decent standard.
Yeah.
I can't do much else. I'm trying to work on that now. And I did start having lessons probably about 6 years ago with a guy in Cardiff called Elliot Bennett, amazing drummer. He's he teaches jazz or drums or at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. So he knows how to teach, and he kind of does private tuition on the side. So big up to Elliot. He's worth following on Instagram. He posts playing videos every day, and it's like mind-boggling stuff. But yeah, I kind of did that. At the time, I was working a full-time retail job, and I was being a bit lazy with it, to be honest. I wasn't putting the hours in to practice, and I kind of got to a stage where I did learn I think I did progress to quite a considerable amount in terms of it opened up. Like, we did a bit of jazz. We studied kind of some of the African rhythms and the Latin rhythms. And I think even though I'd never like nailed any of them, it opened up my ability to kind of not just be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 that way. And like, I think I really did. I remember we did like blues shuffles and stuff like that. And like, I'd never, even though I knew what a swing beat was, and I kind of knew I could do that, but he kind of taught me how to do it properly, and Texas shuffles, and I really enjoyed that. And at the time I was playing in like a blues rock band, so I could utilize that. But the other stuff that it felt like I was learning, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to use this. And because I was quite busy, I wasn't, I was in 3 bands at the time. I'm still touring, and I could have put more time in. I agree I could have, but there's only so much time you've got to play with. But yeah, I felt like I was going every 2 weeks, and then it'd be one lesson after another, and I hadn't even practiced. So I'm like, I got to pack this in for now. Maybe in the future I can come back when I can actually practice what you're teaching me. Because at the moment I'm just kind of giving you money. You're giving me PDF files, and that's it. and yeah, it's a shame. But I like reading music, I can kind of read it, but like I'm not confident enough to kind of sight read anything. I've never kind of got to that level. Like we talked about in the episode with you on my podcast. You're very proficient at sight reading. Well, and you do reasonable. Yeah, well, I couldn't do that. No chance me ever being able to do that.
But it's horses for courses, isn't it? If you put me behind a rock metal band, I'd get away with it, but no more than that. It wouldn't be, and I don't like just getting away with it. I'd rather do a good job. So I know to stay clear of, stuff I'm not particularly great at, which is most things. but
it's like, it's like do what you're good at.
And exactly.
Be as good as you can at that.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to, I'd love to be able to play in a jazz trio, but I don't have the skills to do it. And, I could blag it a little bit. It wouldn't be very authentic.
Same here.
Yeah. I don't know.
So, let's move along a little bit now. So obviously Lemmy sadly passes away in 2000. I think it was late 2015, wasn't it? It was very close to the New Year, wasn't it? And remember it well. So, how did the Bastard Sons come about? Obviously, there's no Lemmy, there's no Motorhead, is there? It's as simple as that. Yeah,
that's completely true. And like my dad and Mikkey D pretty much said at the time, it wasn't even a conversation. Should we continue without Lemmy?
Yeah,
it's like
you just can't, can you?
That is it. And there was a lot of pressure at the time, and it still does come up apparently, about them doing like a tribute tour to him with different vocalists. And like, I know my dad's not interested.
No, it wouldn't work, I don't think, personally.
No, and he doesn't like. People might have their opinion about what Motorhead was musically, but it's not easy music to play or sing.
No.
It's really not.
No.
I think people think, oh yeah, I can do that. And you know, they've had guest vocalists come up. I've seen bands do covers of songs, and it's not good enough, you know.
And you try finding somebody who plays bass like Lemmy, who is totally unique. There's no way on earth.
No way. And then who sings like him as well. But he, like my dad, doesn't want to go to all that effort for, you know, to be guest vocalists who kind of half-assed learn a song and then mess it up on the night or whatever. And I think you'd be interested in doing it if it was with one specific singer and they rehearsed properly with one singer.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe go out and did that. I think that's maybe you would talk to the relevant people to honor Lemmy, because I think the fans want to honor Lemmy. And I think that's important because the fans were everything to Lemmy.
Of course.
If you read any of his book, well, he's got a book. They were the most important thing, and he always said, you know, without them, there would not be Motorhead.
And that book is White Line Fever, by the way, and it's fantastic.
It's
a great read.
It is. It's really good. And I don't read many autobiographies nowadays. I read a few, but that was one. Obviously, I was going to read that one. But yeah, it is. Even if you're not into the band, it's fascinating, I think. And it gives you a bit more respect for him if you didn't have it before. You know, he's one of those guys. If you kind of know a little bit about him, you think he's amazing. And then people who are maybe outside of the rock world just think, maybe don't understand the respect that he has within this community.
It's huge.
Absolutely, yeah. But going back to the band, Lemmy no more. We were already. My dad had like a side project with us. It was at the time it was called Phil Campbell's All-Star Band.
Okay.
And we were kind of doing a few gigs on the side. It was only covers at this time while Motorhead was still going. Obviously at the time it was part-time for us. It was part-time for him. It was a little bit of fun. Obviously when, you know, after Lemmy passed away, then, you know, 6 months passed or whatever. It was hard, really hard time for my dad, unbelievably hard. And then, you know, we talked about maybe, you know, would you want to maybe take this band a bit more seriously if you still want to play music? Obviously, you know, we'd like to play music. And he was like, well, yeah, this might be the best way for me to kind of get on with my life. Yeah. I don't want to speak for him, but
no, of course.
But I think it's done him a world of good. And I know he loves playing with us because it's me and two of my brothers in the band, and we have another singer who's not related. But so like my dad loves being on stage with us, and he says sometimes he forgets. He says he forgets that I'm playing with my sons. I just think I'm playing with a kick-ass rock band. He always says
that's the ultimate sort of compliment, isn't it?
Yeah. And then he looks around, and like I'm on drums, and so I think he's like proud of us. And obviously, we're happy that he's enjoying it. Otherwise, like we wouldn't want to do it if he wasn't enjoying it.
No, of course.
No point. It's obviously helping us. It's helping our careers. Because I've been flogging away with original bands since I was 15, 16. I played most of the toilet venues, the toilet circuit around the UK, and I dabbled with a bit of European touring, but not a lot, to be honest. It's too expensive. So unless you've got a fan base. Yeah, and you can, you know, get a decent fee for the show. It's just expensive, really.
Yeah, it ends up costing you money, doesn't it? Rather than earning.
The first tour we did with my band Straight Lines, so we were supporting another band who we were told had a decent, reasonable following, and they were an amazing band. And the tour was booked. We were the main support band. There was a few local bands on the bill, but we lost like £1,000 doing that tour, and then. We probably played to about maybe 500 people throughout the whole tour if we were lucky.
Wow. Okay.
And so, do you know what I mean? And I think that at that point we were like, whoa, this is difficult. This is hard. And that was the last major thing we did with our band. The guitarist left. I think maybe he realized, oh my God, because at the time we were like they call it semi-pro, where you get paid, but you're not obviously making a living.
Yeah,
off it.
sure.
We played Download Festival, we played Sonisphere Festival, and we did like small headline tours in the UK and stuff. But like to get to that, to kind of get to the next level, and like it seemed like a massive jump, and we weren't anywhere near that.
But obviously, you've got, you and your brothers, obviously great players anyway. And then you bring in the magic ingredient of your dad, who is, globally recognized as an iconic guitarist, isn't he? Maybe you don't see it the same as outsiders like me, but, everyone knows who Phil Campbell is. Anybody who likes or knows music, and an amazing thing, all of a sudden, you've got that name in there as well as the quality of you guys, and it's you're onto a winner, aren't you? Straight away, I think.
Well, I think it's weird when you say iconic is an interesting word. I think he was in the band for 32 years. It was a long time.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has even dabbled with a bit of rock music, or especially heard Motorhead, hopefully would at least recognize the name. There's still so many people. I don't know why. I guess a lot of bands, everyone says, "Oh, the original lineup is the best." That's always that gets used a lot with Motorhead. See, and it annoys me because the original lineup they talked about wasn't the original lineup.
No, it wasn't.
There was two other guys before the two they mentioned, which is Fast Eddie Clarke and Filthy Animal Taylor. Which it was an amazing lineup. Yeah. And they obviously created the Ace of Spades album and Overkill and stuff like that, which called the classic album. But I think that lineup was only together for like 5 years or 7 years or something. And then like my dad was in the band for 32. Mikkey D was in the band for 25 or something like that. Yeah. And like people kind of go, "Oh, screw those guys. The other lineup's the best lineup," and I see those kind of things every day because I'm in a lot of the Motorhead fan groups and stuff. Yeah, sure. It's a shame, really. I don't think there's a lot of people who stick up for him, saying, "Oh, I know, actually, 25 albums Phil Campbell did are all amazing," or whatever it is. I don't know how many albums. It's something stupid like that. Yeah, and they're all just as good as the original. Blah blah blah. So I think he's kind of underrated in terms of his contribution to the band to some degree. Or if people recognize him at all. But yeah, I think, anyone who's seriously into it, think, he's been Lemmy's sidekick for that,
Absolutely.
And I think that's why. And like, he's not the greatest guitarist in the world. He'll admit that. I think he's.
But what he does is he's just a rock and roll guitar player, isn't he?
He plays the blues. Yeah. He's very good at improvising kind of bluesy kind of solos, and he's got his own identity. And I think it's what a lot of people, hopefully drummers will understand. I'm sure they will. You can have the best kit or the worst kit, but it's the player behind the kit that kind of creates the magic. And I think that's the same with like my guitar, with my dad. If you hear him play, if you're familiar with his kind of style and his soloing, and you can kind of hear him and know it's him. And I think that's what's good. And there's a lot of I've listened to, he does a lot of guesting on other people's albums. Yeah, sure. He's always been up for doing stuff like that. And sometimes I'll listen to an album from this band and I know my dad's on one of the tracks. I don't know which track it is. And then as soon as that solo comes in, I'm like, yeah, that's him. That's my guy. He's
got like a thumbprint all of his own, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool.
But the stuff, the songs, I mean, from your first EP, which I didn't realize you'd done an EP until in probably the last month, which was the same with 2016, wasn't it? Yeah. But the band hasn't half evolved to the album, your pandemic album, The Bastards, which is a great album. The first full album was brilliant. Loved it, I have to say. And it's a great sound you've all got going on, and it does. You must enjoy it. Do you share the songwriting in it?
Yeah, well, in terms of we share the songwriting credits.
Yeah, I mean, do you come up as a unit with the songs, or
generally? But I would say a lot of rock music I guess it starts with kind of guitar riffs.
Yeah,
to be honest, so most of them start with a riff or a couple of riffs. Some of them my brother writes, some of them my dad writes.
Sure.
Like I even wrote a few guitar melody things because like I said, I play guitar, and we were in the studio. This is on the first album, and it was like, trying to find something that fits over this bit, and I was like, let me have a go. And I'm like, and I figured something out, and they're like, I like that. Let's go with that. And like, so we because we can all play every instrument to a certain degree. Like I can play bass. I got a bass behind me.
Yeah, I see that.
Both my brothers can play drums pretty well, probably almost as good as me, if not equally. My dad plays drums. The only thing none of us are brilliant at is singing. We can't sing very well, but so yeah, we don't lyrically. Our singer Neil wrote all the lyrics, I believe. Yeah. On the latest album, which my brother Todd produced, actually,
did he really?
Yeah, he produced the first EP. And he produced the latest album, Where the Bastards.
Did a great job.
He's very good. I guess he may have had a bit of a say on some of the lyrical changes or melodies and stuff, as like what a producer does.
Of course.
But yeah, it's fair. I would say, and even on the drums, sometimes my brother would be like, "I've got this idea for the drums to go with this riff," or sometimes it's like, "I'll just start doing what I can hear in my head with a riff," and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." But sometimes it's like, "Oh, try this," and it's good because we can all help each other with each instrument. Or sometimes I think if I hear my brother doing like a bass kind of fill or like a bass line, I'm like, that third note you're playing there, try one semitone up or whatever, and so we can all kind of contribute.
You can speak the language, can't you, for each other, which is useful.
It is useful, definitely. Yeah. And I think because we're kind of family, we don't feel awkward kind of suggesting ideas. Whereas I can imagine if you're in certain situations, you're like, well, he plays that instrument, he plays that instrument. You just kind of let each other do what they want. But we want to make the best song,
of course,
and the best album. So we could try something and it isn't as good as the original idea. So then we go, okay, fair enough, but at least we tried it. And I think that's what we're always open to trying variable ideas. But I'm glad you like the music.
I do. And Freak Show is my favorite song you do. I really like that song. I don't know if you do that live or not, but it's such a cool song. I was going to say that's been a bit of a favorite live song. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to be doing it in the upcoming shows because we're trying to squeeze obviously the new ones in.
Yeah.
But it's a funny story about that song because that was actually written. Lyrically, I don't really know where a lot of the songs come from Neil, from where Neil was writing them or the history behind them. But this one was specifically about a night out on tour. We played a small venue in Switzerland, and there was a party afterwards, and the kind of promoter or the owner of the place said, "Oh, you can stick around and party with us. Don't worry, you don't have to pay for any booze or anything." And it was just like, it was probably about 50, 60 people maybe stayed for a party, and it was the end of our tour, and we're all quite well behaved on tour. We're not big partiers, or everything's very clean. There's a little bit of alcohol, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Pretty boring for a rock and roll band, but it was kind of like end of the tour. We got a flight in the morning. Let's go, and we've had a great tour. Let's go and have a party. And I was on the DJ decks. Spotify. And it was just a crazy night with various interesting characters in the room, and it's kind of about that night.
Yeah.
And it is a good song. I played it. I did enjoy playing it. I think we played it so much the last few years. I mean, I'm going to enjoy not playing it for a while, but it might come back into the set eventually. But yeah, a lot of people like that one. And
but
just,
you're 2 albums and an EP in, which is pretty solid, isn't it, these days? And you must be, as well as being a tight unit musically, obviously, 3 brothers and a father, you're going to be pretty tight as a band generally, aren't you? And I guess it must be hard for anybody else coming in or be like, oh no.
Well, no, it's a very good point you have there, because I think our singer Neil, we were friends with him anyway, which was very helpful.
Yeah,
because he knew us.
Great singer, by the way.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, really good. That helped. But I can imagine he probably may have felt a little bit awkward when we were maybe having a disagreement about something on tour. We did disagree about things.
Yeah.
We've always kind of seen the band as a bit of a democracy, so everyone kind of gets a vote on whatever the decision is, whatever it's about.
Yeah.
And sometimes you lose, sometimes you win them, But I think, and there's a few people that have come in and maybe text that eventually become part of the family.
Yeah.
But like the guy who I've had him on my podcast as a bonus episode, David, he kind of drum techs and guitar techs, kind of does both. Like he was my friend in school, so he's kind of like, I've known him for years. We try and keep it as in as we can,
Yeah, sure.
And to avoid that, it's just we want them to feel comfortable, but we want to feel comfortable as well. So like I kind of worry about the day when we might have to have some completely new guitar tech or sound engineer come on the bus, or because I'm like, I don't know what he's going to be like, or are we going to get on with him, or is he going to snore, or is he going to smell?
It's a big thing, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And because life on the road is you literally live in each other's pockets in a smelly van or bus or whatever. And so you want it to be as comfortable for everyone.
Yeah.
In terms, but not just physically comfortable, but you want to kind of have that mindset that everyone's just kind of chilled,
Yeah, that's important. It is. You've got some gigs starting to come in as well, haven't you? You've got I think you mentioned Steelhouse. Was that the first one you've got coming up?
Yeah, that's the first one. And we're glad this is happening, because there's been a lot of doubt, I guess, over the last few months whether these outdoor festivals are going to happen. They've obviously done a few trial gigs with like the Download pilot, which I think did really well. So hopefully that's going to help these go ahead. But yeah, that's going to be a cool one. We're headlining the opening day, which is quite nerve-wracking, really, because it's going to be our first show in so long. But I guess you have to have a first show. Yeah,
and it's a fairly local one, that, for you as well, isn't it?
It's very local for me personally. It's literally about maybe 20, 25 minutes up the road, up a mountain in Ebbw Vale. So I live near Caerphilly, in a town called Ystrad Mynach. Okay,
I know it. I know it. I don't know it personally, but I've heard of it, obviously.
Not a lot going on there, sure, but it's nice. Yeah, so it's nice to have it. It's nice that it's local. I think it kind of takes the edge off having to kind of travel for hours and hours, and hopefully we can just get on with it. But yeah, we've played it before. It's a great festival. The crowd are always up for it. Really kind of dedicated crowd. I think they have a lot of the same kind of punters come every year.
Sure,
it's more of that kind of classic rock audience, I suppose. But yeah, there's some great bands playing the whole weekend, and I don't know if I can go for the weekend yet. I don't know what the allocation is going to be for artists, because I think they might be trying to limit numbers or something. I don't know. Because if you can imagine, if every band sticks around for every day, there's going to be another 60 people.
Yeah, it's a lot.
In backstage that maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah,
with the COVID thing. I don't know.
Of course.
I don't know. But yeah, we got that. We got a gig in Cornwall supporting Orange Goblin, which is
a
great band.
Yeah.
That's just like a one-off gig. It's an outdoor venue called The Yard in Cornwall, which I've not been to, but they did a trial gig there last summer, believe it or not, during the first pandemic kind of year, and it went really well. I think they were socially distanced or something. You had to have different bubbles in squares. I don't know if it's going to be like that this time. I don't know, but we'll see. And then the other one, if it goes ahead, is Bloodstock Festival, which is a metal
so Derbyshire.
Derbyshire, I believe so. Yeah. So that's going to be a big deal as well. I think we're playing the Saturday we're headlining the second stage or something like that. So again, pretty scary slots.
Yeah. But great though.
So long. But yeah, great. And
I know I'll put it like this: on paper, you have a headline tour, don't you? Is it November starting?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
on paper, we'll say on paper because I know nothing's.
Yeah, no one really knows what's the deal with indoor gigs at this moment when we record this. Yeah, but on paper, we're supposedly headlining in the UK for any listeners in the UK. I don't know the dates off by how we.
Well, I know the first one. The first one is Buckley Tivoli, my local venue. So I know I'll be coming to that one. It better happen. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. Obviously, if it does go ahead, we'll definitely catch up there.
Yeah.
Yes, we're playing all over as practically possible. We'd even go into Dublin and Belfast, which we've never done before. So that's our first time to go there. Don't know how it's going to work yet. But yeah, if it goes ahead, we'll find a way. We'll get on a ferry or whatever people do together.
Well, let's hope it all happens, and it'd be good to see you out and about, and be good to catch up with you in person rather than over Zoom. So anybody listening, watching, please check out Dane's podcast, Drum for the Song. If you don't know the band, if you've been living under a rock, check out Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, and then buy a ticket and go and see them on their tour in November, which hopefully will happen. Fingers crossed, anyway.
Yeah.
Look, thanks, Dane, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for doing this. It's really kind of you. And hopefully, as I say, we'll get to catch up in November.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matty. And
pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Again, great to talk to you. Cheers.
Likewise. Thanks, mate. See you later.